Song of Silence by Smoke Shadow 95, read by Deathlights. Chapter 1, First Contact. Octavia walked down the streets of Manhattan. She had a smile on her face and a bit of pep to her step. The sun was shining bright in the sky. A gentle breeze was blowing through the air. It was a good day. It was the first day off that she had been given in quite a while. After practicing with the symphony for weeks on end, she was glad for a rest. Not that she actually used this time to rest and relax. Instead, she was using it to go and experience more music. You'd think a pony who spent weeks with a classical symphony would get tired of classical music, but not Octavia. She had heard that there were some young ponies performing at a local amphitheater, and that they were going to be playing some classical music that she was into. She had to admit that she was curious, and so Octavia decided to go and see these young upcomers. She wanted to see just how good, or not so good, they were. Maybe there was some pony from this group that would go on to be a famous musician someday. Maybe she would even go and meet some of them, perhaps even mentor them. Octavia held up her head as these thoughts swirled around. She took a deep breath of the Manhattan air. Right away, she wished she hadn't. While she was looking forward to this concert, she wasn't exactly thrilled at the location it was venued. Because these ponies were amateurs at best, the only place they can go and perform was a slightly run-down part of town. It wasn't a bad part of town or anything. It was certainly better than some places in the city. However, it was still a far cry from the comfort she was used to having in her life. And while she didn't mind going outside of her comfort zone from time to time, it was always the smells that drove her back the fastest. In her haste to escape the stench from a nearby alleyway, Octavia was rushed by a pony that came crashing out and landing on the sidewalk.
Hey, watch it!
Octavia shouted as the pony nearly ran her over. She looked back at the pony, who in turn stopped and turned to look at her. Octavia was about to tear into her, but suddenly stopped when she saw her. She was a mare with what was at one point a white coat. All she saw now was a faded white color with stains of filth and grime, all mixed together as a layer of sweat was rolling off her. Her electric blue mane was a wild mess, but it seemed to be always that way. Beyond that, Octavia saw the glasses that she was wearing. They hid her eyes behind the purple lenses, and altogether somewhat strange to her. Octavia had to admit that this strange mare pulled off the look quite nicely. They also appeared to be the nicest things she had.
You should really be more careful.
Octavia said. Her tone wasn't mean or aggressive. She didn't raise her voice at all. She spoke to the mare like she was any other pony. She wasn't sure why she was acting this way. There was just something about this mare that stuck out to her. She couldn't explain why, but she was simply compelled to be nicer to her. This white mare looked up at Octavia while panting heavily. She gave Octavia a quick flash of a smile between pants. She was trying to keep her eyes on the alley, the street, and Octavia all at the same time. She turned her body to the side a little. She was still facing Octavia, but was in a little better place in case she needed to start running again. At least the panting stopped, and she quickly closed her mouth before looking back. Octavia was staring at her. Her cheeks grew a little red, and she pawed at the sidewalk awkwardly.
It's okay.
Octavia said with a kind smile.
You don't have to say anything right now.
Just then, two more ponies burst out of the same alley. A couple of stallions. One was large, with long legs and a short-cut mane. The other one was smaller, with a slicked-back cut. They really didn't seem all that smart to Octavia. They were ignoring her in kind, as they immediately set their eyes on the mare. Hey there, doll. You kinda ran away before. What was up with that? The slick one asked. Everything about him was sleazy. His clothes were old, second-rate, and dirty. His mane was badly kempt, and even his voice sounded sleazy. And his friend wasn't much better. We just wanted to talk, he said. He was bigger, but all that did was make Octavia even more certain that he was the dumber one out of the two. She couldn't help but roll her eyes a little at these two. The white mare with the shades backed up a few paces and put her head down. Her mouth was twisted in a determined scowl as she faced down the two. She wasn't giving up. She was simply moving into a better position to pounce. She was ready to fight these two. It didn't take a genius to figure that out either. This is something that Octavia simply couldn't stand.
Ahem. Excuse me.
She called out. She tried to get the slick one's attention. He was the closest one to the other mare. The big one turned, as well as the slick one. He turned around, and his face lit up in a disturbing way. It made her uneasy, but she kept cool. "Whoa, doll," he said as he glanced back over his shoulder to the white mare. "I didn't realize you went looking for a friend."
Back off.
Octavia spat, almost interrupting him. Her voice was firm and heavy. It was unmoving, unwavering voice that held the tone that was used to issuing orders or commands. A gift passed down to Octavia from her dear mother. Her eyes locked on the pair of ponies. She could feel the cold chill of fear creeping up her spine. She held back the shaking in her legs as best as she could. She didn't want them to know that she was scared. She wanted to stay right here, standing her ground with this mare. "Hey there, doll. Calm down. We were just talking." She didn't say we can talk to her. No biggie. Octavia stepped right up to him. Whether she liked it or not, she had to get close. She shoved her face close to his, but not in the way he wanted. She stood as tall as she could, even lifting herself up to the tips of her hooves a bit, just to get to his eye level. She looked into his eyes, glaring angrily with her piercing gaze.
Do not call me doll.
She said, although it sounded more like a threat.
And you need to leave me and my friend alone. Now.
All right, calm down, he said as he backed off. He turned back down the alleyway he came from, but stopped after a few steps. "Come on, big guy, we gotta get back to work." The big one sighed. "Okay," he said as he turned clumsily and headed down the alleyway after the other. Octavia stood there at the sidewalk and watched them as they walked away. She stood her ground between the white mare and them. As the two turned a corner, the small, sleazy one looked back at Octavia and gave her a wink. Octavia shuddered at this, and the two were finally gone. Octavia stood there a moment longer before she let out a huge sigh in relief.
Well now,
She said to the other mare.
that was terrifying.
The white mare seemed to calm down as well. Her body became less tense as she nearly collapsed right there on the sidewalk. After which, she looked up at Octavia and tilted her head. Even behind those glasses, Octavia could tell that she was a bit confused. But this wasn't the best place to talk. She suddenly had a growing distrust of stallions.
Come with me.
Octavia said. She pulled the mare by her leg and dragged her along the sidewalk for a short while. Octavia was so glad that the concert didn't start for another few hours. She dragged the mare alongside her for a few steps before she started to walk by herself, but she still never stayed by her side. She didn't seem to want to walk next to Octavia, side by side. She was always following a few steps behind her whenever they moved. Octavia wasn't sure why she did this. After a few attempts to walk next to her, Octavia let it be. Besides, it gave her a few moments to herself to think.
What in the world am I doing? And why? Why am I doing this? This mare practically runs me over, and the next thing I know, I'm saving her from some sort of Manhattan's finest sleazers. Now, I'm taking her with me. What is going on with me?
Octavia's thoughts were broken up by a sharp tug on her tail. She looked back to see the mare dropping a few strands of her mane from her lips. She smiled with some slight embarrassment and pointed ahead of them. Her roof was directed right at a large building.
Yes, that's where we're going.
Octavia told her. The mare looked at the building, her face drained of color. Her whole white body seemed to fade as she stared up at the building. A massive structure, one of the biggest in Manhattan, stood before them. From the outside, the windows looked like dark pools of water against the white finish of the building itself. The sun reflected off the perfectly shining building, and only her shades were saving her. Octavia looked at it, and the bricks quickly fell into place. This was one of the nicer hotels in Manhattan. They had walked a while to get here, and in all that time, she didn't even realize it.
You've never been inside of a hotel before, have you?
The mare shook her head back and forth. That was a no. She had barely even seen the outside of these nice hotels, and now the thoughts of actually being inside one, going inside of this one, it made her quite nervous. She turned on a hoof and faced the opposite direction. She didn't even make it a step before Octavia had raced to her side again. She stood there with the mare and faced with the warm eyes and kind smile.
Don't worry. Everything will be okay.